This is the summary of Google's UX design course, which is available on Coursera. The course one, in previous video we have covered week one, which was introduction to user experience design. In this video we will be covering week two, which is getting to know common terms, tools, and frameworks in UX design. Learning objectives: talk like a UX designer, think like a UX designer, consider the next billion users, define across platforms and design across platforms and design for accessibility. So learning objectives: define common terms in UX design, describe common describe user-centered design, explain common design frameworks, describe the importance of next billion users in UX design, explain how UX designers think across platforms, understand equity-focused design, describe the importance of accessibility in the design process, explain the advantages of using design tools, identify common UX design tools. So yeah, let's start. Talk like a UX designer. Difference between user and end user. The user is any person who uses the product. In addition, the end user is the specific audience a UX designer creates something for. So when it comes to evaluating user experience, there are a few key questions to examine. Is the process easy to use? Is the product equitable? Does the product delight the user? Does the product solve the user's problem? The user-centered design puts the user front and center. Focusing on the user means considering their stories, emotions, and insights you have gathered about them. To keep our focus to the user-centered design process has 4 steps: understand, specify, design, evaluate. Iteration is the key. This means doing something again and again on previous version and making tweaks. So, and think like a designer. Framework. A framework creates the basic structure that focuses and support the problem you are trying to solve. User-centered design process, which we have just covered. There are various frameworks in which first was user-centered design process, which we have covered. The 5 elements framework, the design thinking framework, lean UX, and double diamond. So the 5 element of framework is a framework of steps a designer takes in turn to turn an idea into working product. So it includes strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, surface. Strategy: this is where you define the user's needs and the business objectives. Scope: this is where you will determine what you are building. Structure: you will figure out how to organize your design and how the user will interact with it. Skeleton: you can think of it as a layout. Surface: it is how the product look to the user. The design thinking framework is a way to create solution that addresses a real user's problem and are functional and affordable. So it includes empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Empathize: it is about discovering that what end user really needs, and learning how to think and feel like them. Define is the problem define the problem by creating a clear problem statement. Ideate: you should aim to come up with as many ideas as possible by focusing on quantity of ideas, not on the quality. You are more likely to come up with innovative ideas, innovative solutions. Prototype: a prototype is a scaled down version of a product that shows important functions. You should have a clear goal for your prototype in mind. Testing keeps the user front and center, as it gives user an opportunity to provide feedback before the product is built. Based on users' feedback, you can make changes and improvements or come up with completely new ideas. So this was the design thinking framework. Lean UX. The Lean UX focuses on reducing wasted time and resources, and producing a workable product as soon as possible. So it includes think, make, check. Think, explore the problems that users are experiencing and consider how you could solve them with your design. Make, start designing the product by creating a skeleton, sketches, wireframes, and prototypes. Check, find out how users respond to your design and gather feedback from product stakeholders. Make adjustments to your designs accordingly and repeat the three steps again if necessary. There are 6 principles you should keep in mind when using Lean UX process. Move forward, stay curious, test ideas in real world, and externalize your ideas, reframe discoverable as outcomes, reframe deliverables as outcomes, embrace radical transparency. So this was Lean UX. Now Double Diamond. Double Diamond is a important traditional UX process which breaks down UX design into two main phases: research and design, which further break down into four. Research include discover the problem and define the problem, and design include develop the solution for the problem and deliver the product. So discover the problem, gather information about potential issues users are facing, define the problem, filter through the data, and focus on main issues your product aims to solve. Develop solution for your problem, begin designing your product as a work in progress. This is where wireframes and prototype come into play. Deliver the product, review and test your product to prepare it for release. There are 4 principles that inform the Double Diamond process: focus on the user, communicate, collaborate, iterate. Okay, so this was Double Diamond. Now next is consider the next billion users. The next billion users are the people around the world getting online for the first time. There are several issues with them, some of which are cost, connectivity, digital literacy, and literacy in general. So cost, you may have to optimize the storage for low RAM, like they can't afford a higher RAM phone. Connectivity, they may have lack of internet access, so you have to make sure that offline experience is as good as an online experience. Digital literacy, the user might not know how to use phone and supply them, so you have to supply them with some tutorial or guidance, right? And literacy, some users aren't able to read or type, and others might want to switch language on your device depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So next is design across platforms. So platforms, what is platform? A platform is a medium that user experience your product on. The brand identity refers to the visual appearance and voice of the company and should be consistent across all platforms. An average mobile session is 72 seconds, while an average desktop session is 150 seconds, more than twice as long. Why this is important? Because it tells us that people use different device in different ways. So you have to consider that. Responsive web design. Responsive web design allows a website to change automatically depending on the size of the device. Few best practices when designing for a mobile user experience: call to action, navigation, user gestures, and decide for both direction. A phone might help, vertical or landscape, reduce visual clutter. Okay, so call to action buttons should be placed in front and center, and navigation menu should be short and simple. Use gestures that users already use, like tapping and swiping, and designing for both direction of phone, reduce visual clutter. Designing cross-platform experience and the 4 Cs. So these are consistency, continuity, context, and complementary. Consistency, the most companies have to have specific guidelines that need to be followed in order to stay consistent with their brand identity, with which refers to the visual appearance and voice of the company. Continuity to provide users with a seamless experience as they move between platforms and platforms. UX designer also have to prioritize continuity. Context, it's also important to consider the context of each platform you are designing for. Complementary, one way to create a great cross-platform user experience is to make sure that design of each platform adds something new to user. Okay, so this was design across platforms. So now design for accessibility. Three more ways to put the user first in your design: universal design, inclusive design, and equity focused design. So universal design is a process of creating one product for users with widest range of abilities and the widest range of situation. Inclusive design means making design choice that takes into account personal identifiers like ability, race, economic status, language, age, and gender. Equity focused design, it asks designers to focus on designing for groups that have been historically underrepresented or ignored when building products. Designing products, devices, services, or environments for people with disabilities called accessibility, A11Y. Uh, so A and Y are the end letters of accessibility, and there are 11 letters between A and Y. So A11Y. Now, four broad categories of disability: people with motor disability, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, people with cognitive disabilities like development, learning, or intellectual disability, people with vision disability. Also, disabilities can be permanent, temporary, or situational. Equity focused design. Equity focused design is means that means thinking through the all aspects of design product, and making sure the product is both accessible and fair to all genders and races and abilities. Now, assistive technology, it is any product, equipment, and system that enhance learning and working and daily living for the people with disabilities. It includes color modification, voice control, screen readers, alternative text, and many more. So, like color modification is like adding high contrast mode or dark mode on your devices. Voice control allows users to navigate and interact with buttons and screens on their device using only their voice. Screen readers, the softwares work on mobile and devices and read out loud or any on-screen text. Alternative text or alt text helps to translate a visual user interface into a text-based user interface. So this was week 2. So for further weeks, do subscribe. Thank you.